Hello everyone, welcome to Inconvenient Truths. I'm your host, Jennifer Zheng. Up until very recently, almost everyone thought that Xi Jinping will have no problem maintaining his power at next year's CCP's National Congress, as he had successfully rewritten China's constitution and eliminated the two-term limit on the presidency in 2018. But two recent incidents made some China observers think Xi Jinping may not necessarily be able to keep his power. Today, I will talk about these two incidents and let you decide what you want to take away from them. The first incident happened on October 14th when the CCP had a meeting in Beijing about the CCP's People's Congress system. All 7 members of the CCP Bureau Committee and Vice Chairman Wang Qishan attended the meeting. And Xi Jinping made an important speech. He mentioned that at present, the world is undergoing an unprecedented major change that has never been seen in a century. The system competition is an important aspect of the competition for comprehensive national power, and the system advantage is an important one for a country to win the strategic advantage. Xi Jinping went on to say that China's system is better than America's, and China's democracy is also better. He then mentioned the most sensitive topic that nobody expected he would mention, the transition of power. He said, the evaluation of whether a country's political system is democratic and effective depends mainly on whether the leadership of the country can be changed in an orderly manner in accordance with the law, and whether all sectors of society can effectively participate in the political life of the country, whether national decision-making can be scientific and democratic, and whether tenants from all walks of life can enter the state leadership and management system through fair competition. Wouldn't you think that the CCP's China is having better democracy after listening to Xi Jinping's speech? However, many China observers first thought after Xi Jinping's mentioning about orderly transition of power was that Xi has encountered big problems. He must have felt that it could be impossible for him to continue to stay in power in next year's 20th Congress. So he was trying to say that he was ready to hand over his power. In the meantime, he wanted to warn his political enemies. If you want me to hand over my power, everything must be done in an orderly manner. The safety and interest of my family, myself, and my supporters and followers must be ensured. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any orderly transition of power. Of course, this could also mean that he was just threatening his political enemies and vowed that he wouldn't hand over his power whatsoever, as according to his standard, everything is in order only if the power is in his own hands. If not, things are already out of order. The second incident is more interesting. It happened only 3 days before Xi Jinping talked about orderly transition of power. On October 11th, the CCP's military newspaper called People's Liberation Army Daily, or PLA Daily, published an article titled, "Always Keep Your Reputation Intact." This article is on both the PLA Daily's website and newspaper, and the article title is from a line of a poem from Yu Qian. Who is Yu Qian? He was a famous Chinese official from the Ming Dynasty, and he was born in 1398 and died in 1457, that is, more than 500 years ago. He served as the Minister of War, which can be roughly understood as the Minister of Defense of our time. Well, the PLA Daily article started with a poem of Yu Qian, which can be roughly translated as, "Wealth is easy to go and hard to maintain. Man is half dead if he loses his aspiration and determination. As long as his reputation is intact, why would he be bothered by things that he can't bring along?" Then the article goes on to praise Yu Qian for being so upright, who only cared about principles and who was never bothered by material gains. He had left nothing to his family. Then the article especially mentioned that when the coup happened, Yu Qian, as the defense minister who controlled the entire army of the country, didn't intervene, didn't do anything for the sake of the well-being of the entire nation. Even when he was wronged and thrown into prison, he didn't argue, he didn't try to defend himself. And what a great person he was. He has been admired for thousands of years, etc. The coup mentioned in the article was referred to as the coup at the gate, or the coup of seizing the gate. When people with knowledge of the history of that coup read the story, they couldn't help thinking, wow, what I'm reading, is this for real? Why would they exclaim like that? To understand this, we need to know a little bit of the history behind the coup at the gate event that happened in 1457 during China's Ming Dynasty. To cut a long story short, the coup went on like this. The sixth emperor of the Ming Dynasty was Yin Zhong. So this is a portrait of him. He became the emperor in 1435 when he was only 9 years old. In 1449, when he was still a young man of 22 years old, he was captured and imprisoned by Mongols after he lost a war with the Mongols. So after he was captured, his brother became the new emperor amid the crisis. And the new emperor was referred to as Emperor Jin Tai. After that, Yu Qian, the Minister of War, successfully defended Beijing when the Mongols attempted to further invade the Ming Dynasty. Then 1 year later, in 1450, the Mongols and the Ming Dynasty made peace. The captured Emperor Yin Zhong was released and returned. But one country couldn't have two emperors, right? So Yin Zhong was immediately put under house arrest by Emperor Jin Tai. Although Yin Zhong was still officially the supreme emperor, which can be literally understood as the person above the emperor. So Emperor Jin Tai continued to be the emperor for another 7 years. In 1457, he became very ill, and he didn't have an heir, as his only son had already died before him. So the dynasty was in crisis again because the emperor could die anytime without a successor. Some officials then figured, how about we reinstall the ex-emperor or the supreme emperor to solve the problem? So they really organized some troops to carry out the plan. They marched to the place where the ex-emperor was imprisoned. They attacked the gate with a big chunk of wood and ended up breaking the wall. When the ex-emperor Yin Zhong saw them breaking into the courtyard, he was nearly scared to death, as he thought these people were sent by his brother to kill him. but everybody knelt down in front of him, called him the emperor, and told him their plan. And then they put Yingzhong onto a 轿子 or a palanquin and carried him to the emperor's palace. When they reached a gate called Donghua Gate, they couldn't get through as the gate was heavily guarded by soldiers. What could they do? It seemed that the coup would have to fail. At this stage, Supreme Emperor Yingzhong got off his palanquin and shouted out to the soldiers, saying, "I am the Supreme Emperor. Who dares to stop me?" The Supreme Emperor was officially even higher than the emperor, so the soldiers dared not to stop him. So Yingzhong and his supporters went right to the emperor's palace, and Yingzhong was put onto the emperor's seat and declared the new emperor. So succeeded. As the most important moment of that coup was when Yingzhong came out of his palanquin and shouted that he was the supreme emperor. So that coup was called the coup at the gate, or the coup of seizing the gate. Now, let's go back to the People's Liberation Army daily article. When it openly praised the then Minister of War Yu Qian for staying neutral when and after the coup happened, what kind of a message does it give out? We've already said in our last show about the CCP's 100% ban of non-state-owned media that in CCP's China, nothing in the media is thrown out there without a reason or a hidden message. So, as a military newspaper, what does the PLA Daily want to say? People would naturally assume that the PLA Daily was telling the military, should there be a coup in China now, the military should learn from Yu Qian and stay neutral. Now, if that is the message, it is not difficult at all to work out who is the modern-day Emperor Yingzhong and who is the modern-time Emperor Jintai, right? So, of course, Xi Jinping is the modern-day Emperor Jintai, and either the CCP's former head Jiang Zemin or former vice chairman of China Zheng Qinghong, or this two-man's gang is the modern-day Emperor Yingzhong. Actually, a while ago in August, it was reported that the Chinese military told Xi Jinping that they were not happy about the CCP's wolf warrior diplomacy and they didn't want to bear the consequences of the foreign ministry's wolf warrior diplomacy or go to war with other countries because of this wolf warrior diplomacy. So, at that time, people were already suspecting that Xi Jinping actually hadn't gained absolute control over the military. Also, if we look at Xi Jinping's own behaviors, we can also draw the conclusion that Xi Jinping feels very, very unsafe. That was why he has not left China or visited any foreign countries for more than 21 months now. Also, inside China, when there were huge natural disasters, he never appeared at the disaster areas to inspect the situation and to lead the disaster relief work. This is very different from his predecessors. For example, former CCP head Hu Jintao and Chinese Premier Wen Jiabao both went to Sichuan province after the huge earthquake in 2008. Of course, when the CCP leaders do these kind of things, people say they are just putting on a show. But the problem is, Hu Jintao and Wen Jiabao at least put on a show. Xi Jinping didn't even bother to put on a show. So from this, we know that Xi Jinping really does feel very, very insecure. Not only police officers, his political enemies inside the politics and the law sector want to assassinate him. The military can also go out of control. Otherwise, why would the PLA Daily openly talk about a coup and encourage the military to stay neutral and not intervene if a coup does happen? Well, only 3 days after the article was published, Xi Jinping started to talk about the orderly transition of power, much to many people's surprise. Well, there is still another year to go until the CCP's next National Congress. Can Xi Jinping hold on to his power until then? It seems that things are becoming more and more uncertain. Well, thank you very much for watching. Please do subscribe to and share my channel and tell your friends and family what you learned from me today. Thank you. See you soon.